We're specifically focusing in this project on the topic of pathogens, bacteria and viruses, and how these might be impacted by climate change and what that means for human health and how we're going to protect us. A lot of these pathogens, they are coming from our actual activities, everyday activities. So they are entering the water systems through urban water, wastewater treatment plants. And these are a bit the interfaces you can see here on these pictures, which sometimes you might see. So you might sometimes see like a flume of turbid water entering the river, or you might see these openings in a wall where water is entering the natural system. We're very much interested in taking an integrated approach. So we start thinking what's happening at the top of the mountain, at the top of the urban catchment of the water catchment of the river basin, and how does that end up affecting the estuary and the coastal area. So looking both at impacts coming from urban areas as well as from farmlands or from forests. And at the end of the project, we end up with these type of maps, and Jess is going to show us what happens between the photograph I showed you and these types of maps in her next talk. And this is what is helpful for us then for seeing which beaches or which places are at risk, when are they at risk, which events cause risk, and what to do about it. So either closing beaches or reconfiguring our wastewater systems, and we can then use these type of simulations and models to test different strategies. At the same time, we're taking in the project as wide as possible approach, understanding not only this, let's say, biophysical aspects, but how climate change is strongly interacting with other pressures and other drivers to produce health outcomes. And by better understanding these interactions, we also find other places or a wider space for scope of interventions. And so we end up in an innovation space that has, we could think of it as two pillars: technological innovation and social innovation. And these are aspects that we're working on in the BlueAdapt project at early levels of technological readiness. So from basic research into testing, proof of concept. But this is the space then that opens up to business and the private sector in view of actually then implementing these type of systems. So we go in the following talks, we're going to go into a bit more detail what these innovation spaces could entail or could include. And of course, in some way, this then is one of the end goals we have in mind. So is providing safe places that are becoming more and more important as we're experiencing now in this current heat waves across all of Europe. And so this, creating these safe places for beneficial recreational activity, one of the main objectives of this project. And I think with this, I might pass on quickly to the next speaker, and we'll go into a bit more details into these innovation spaces.
Thank you, Marc. That's great. So for everybody on the call, we are a European project funded by Horizon Europe and UKRI. So the people on the call here today, we're dotted all over Europe, and it's very, very hotter for many of you than it is down here in Cornwall. And the next talk that we're going to have from Jess, we are going to be talking about some of the risks so that we can explain them to you. So when we're talking about, pathogens in the water, so, that's bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungi, some of it harmful. We want to explain that to you so that you've got that kind of foundational knowledge. But we don't want to scare you. And the idea is to, knowledge is power, and then we can use that to find out how to keep people safe and stop people from coming into contact with it. And that's what some of our speakers in the later section will come into. So although this bit is talking about the risks, if there's anything that you want to question or talk about, there will be a little Q&A after, or feel free to write messages in the chat as well. Thank you very much. Okay, so now I'm really excited to introduce Jess to you, who is at the University of Bangor. She knows so much about viruses, but also bacteria, antimicrobial resistance, and she puts her hand up to lots of extra interesting projects. So she's got a wealth of knowledge. So yeah, handing over to you, Jess.
Hi everyone. So you should be able to see my screen now, hopefully. There we go. So, right, everyone, I'm going to talk to you about the challenge around coastal water and how we can enjoy our waters safely. So all my talks start with poo. So, and this is a problem, I'm guessing, but everybody needs to go for a poo. You can't really get away from that. And in our poo, we have bacteria. So this is the bacteria that naturally occurs in our gut. Some of it can be pathogenic, such as E. coli, and some of it can carry antimicrobial resistance genes, which can be an issue. And we're just beginning to untangle all the AMR research, and it's all quite new. Then we have viruses. So one of the famous ones is SARS-CoV-2. So our wastewater-based epidemiology programs were based on SARS because we needed to track where we were having outbreaks and where medical resources needed to go during the pandemic. And so this really was great for us from our perspective because we were able to do work on viruses in wastewater that we weren't able to do before. But this virus, it doesn't last for a long time in wastewater, so we don't really worry about that in the environment. What we do worry about are the enteric viruses. So these are the viruses that can survive your gut. So these are norovirus, enterovirus, rotavirus, is a whole list of them. And because they can survive our gut, they can also survive in the environment for a long time. Viruses are different to bacteria. Bacteria have their own metabolism and they can reproduce outside of the host. Viruses can't do that. They need a host. They need to cause an infection in order to be able to reproduce. So they will just be in the water. You'll swallow a mouthful and then 6 hours later you're on the toilet and you're holding a bucket. So the problem with our water quality is twofold. So the water companies get a lot of negative attention, and I see a lot of media headlines around the sewage crisis and that kind of thing. But we actually live in a changing environment. So we have these really nice hot, dry spells. Like I'm enjoying the heat wave at the moment. But what happens during those heat waves is we end up with dry, baked ground. And then we have short duration, intense rainfall. And that rainfall can't penetrate this ground. It just runs straight off. So we end up with localized flooding. And this is my area. This is where I live. And that one with the wheelie bin, that's my friend's front garden. This is just around the corner from my house. I live on the coast. So all this water, and we're surrounded by farmers' fields as well. So God knows what was in this water. I'm guessing it was a bit of everything. So all this ends up in our sea, and as well as the sewage discharge. So we have storm discharge, which contains everything. So raw sewage, untreated sewage. So the thing about this is that it contains everything at really high load. So all the bacteria, all the viruses, if we're having a community outbreak of something, it'll all be in there. But also the final treated effluent, that also contains viruses too, because water companies aren't permitted to remove viruses from wastewater. So not all the treatment plants are the same in their treatment. Some do reduce the levels enough that it's safe, but the ones that I've tested here in North Wales, it's less than a log reduction in viruses such as norovirus. And you only need a tiny little bit of norovirus to make you unwell, and this can lead to a community infection. So viruses are higher in river water when we've tested. So we detected a lot of norovirus in river water, and the coast, when we've tested that in the past, the coastal areas were much safer. The viruses that we found were much lower, and I've got some data and I can show you that. One of the problems that we have around safe bathing waters is the way that we report them. So at the moment, our bathing water standards are based on fecal indicator bacteria. So these are E. coli and enterococci. And that's fantastic, but it doesn't tell us anything about the viruses that are present in the water. The E. coli and the enterococci might be present all the time, whereas viruses come and go depending on what we're having in the community and what kind of outbreak that we're having. So I've got some data that I can show you on that as well. And also we have this bathing water classification system where we go from poor to excellent depending on how much bacteria is present in the water. So if there's a lot of bacteria, then a beach will be given a poor classification. And that information is available online, so not everybody's going to access that. And if there is a water quality issue like this one, which happened not long after that big flooding event that I showed you, there was high levels of E. coli in our local beach. They just put signs on the beach and not a lot of people paid attention to them. There were still people in the water. And the circle on the slide there was a guy on a lilo with a beer. So even though these were out there, people didn't pay attention. They still go in. So we can give people information in these ways, but it doesn't mean that they're going to follow the warning or even take notice. So I think we could have better warning systems in place than just a plaque on a beach. So what we did was...
1 minute warning.
Oh, okay, I've got 1 minute warning. So what we did was went out and we tested bathing waters and coastal bathing waters, and we found no correlation between viruses and bacteria, but we also found that the bacteria were really low. We also tested for antimicrobial resistant genes. So we found some major classes of antibiotic resistance, but we don't know which organisms those were from. So we need to do some further investigation, but they are there, and we're trying to understand how to translate this into health risk. All of our data we put into models so we can predict where the hotspots of pollution are and also what the risk is to human health. So we can use these traffic light systems, red, amber, green. Red, don't go in. Green, it's good, go swimming. And this is really where we're moving to. And having that information, I think, is key to protecting public health and to overcome these challenges. So, that being said, final slide. Even though I know all this stuff, I still get in the water, and that's me, my dog, and my little boy having a nice swim at the weekend, and I'm pulling a funny face because my dog was trying to rescue me. But yeah, okay, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Jess. And just for people on the call who might not have the background, can you just kind of explain antimicrobial resistance, kind of the basis of it?
So antimicrobial resistance, so the figure that I showed you, those are just the genes. So we don't know what bacteria has those. So antimicrobial resistance is resistant to medical treatment. So fungi, like certain yeasts, and bacteria can carry these genes, which means that when you, like, if you acquire an infection, the antibiotics that they currently have don't work on them, or they have to use a last resort antibiotic, which would be like the last line of treatment. So there's so not all bacteria carry them. Well, actually, a lot of bacteria do carry them because they are there as a defense mechanism for the bacteria. Other bacteria produce toxins, so that they're all competing for the same resources, really. So it's natural to have antimicrobial resistance to other bacteria. It's just that they're developing them against antibiotics now. And it's considered to be the next big threat to human health in the next 50 years. There's some scary stats out there, something like 50 people dead every 5 minutes due to an infection from antimicrobial bacteria is one of the stats that Reshma in our group always says. So there's a lot of effort being put into understanding antimicrobial resistance. But in the environment, we can detect antimicrobial resistance because the bacteria are there anyway. We just don't know how they translate into health outcomes. And if they do cause clinical infections, if they do, when, how. You can also carry antimicrobial resistant bacteria and not get ill ever. Then you might get ill when you're immunocompromised. You know, there's lots of nuances around AMR and clinical infection.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you for sharing everything you know on that in that very short amount of time. Does any?
So thank you again, Kerri. So I will be talking about basically how we can approach social innovation and collaboration. And I will talk about an experiment that we are doing here in the north of Spain, which calls the One Health Living Lab, Helios. And basically going back to what Marc was saying in the introduction, we have many interconnected challenges, and actually we take this broad perspective, you know, so as Kerri was saying, it's not only about the infectious diseases and the AMR and the exposure to pathogen and how then we can do a surveillance, a monitoring about that, which is perfect, but it's also to take a broad picture of the interconnected crisis of where we are, that it's also about social inequalities, aging population, we have chronic diseases with many lifestyle problems, mental issues. All these are creating a higher susceptibility to infections. So they need to be considered and integrated in this broad picture. So at the same time, this crisis is also an opportunity to me. This is why I'm so passionate about this. It's a unique opportunity because we need integrative methods, integrative visions. And one of these is the One Health that we are using, which means that the health of humans is strictly interconnected with the health of the environment, plants, animals, it's obvious as well, is connected with social well-being, with economic opportunities, with equity. So we need basically an equilibrium to among all these dimensions. And how do we do that? We need a diversity of institutions, and including businesses, to come together to find how, we can create new opportunities. And the Living Lab is about that, is facilitating this collaboration, this connection among institutions. And Helios is in the north of Spain, like an experiment that we started in a specific area, which is a local coastal touristic zone. And the objective of this network is basically to look at the causes also locally, what they can produce, to have a common understanding, to be like all at the same page, you know, and then to build resilient communities, because this is the final goal. How do we integrate this surveillance with also this broader idea on how to create health? And this drives me really because I think also that is a positive insight that we all need, because as Kerri was saying, we don't want to be too scared. So we need also to put ourselves in something positive, and it can be really transformative. So what we are doing, so our approach at the moment, we have more than 12 agents in our Living Lab. We are a research institute. We work also with the local university. We have local administrations like doctors, hospitals, the water utility. We have representatives of the private sector. Some of them will speak later. We have also NGOs and also representative of citizens. We have a big informal association of female swimmers in the Bahia. which are actually quite active in our network. And what we put a strong emphasis that we need to identify which are the community needs. And the community are all of us, basically. And citizens are key because also in some of our workshops, they already identified some needs, which I can talk later about this in the breakout session. So coming together in a round table, you have citizens, the public authorities, academia, and all these actors is really challenging in one sense, but also inspiring and exciting. So really it's beyond the bottom-up approach, because it's like, how do we build a participatory leadership about this? So we have 5 pillars in our Living Lab.
A minute to go, Aline.
Okay, so we build on knowledge, which is beyond academic. We truly support participation. The quality of participation is really key for us. How do we build the trust? We identified already a big set of interventions that we can go through, and we are active in education in schools and community awareness. And then quickly, I want to say something more practical, that we decided all together to go into 2 European proposals that we also supported as a research institution. And we are basically, what is important here, I mean, I can give more explanation in the breakout rooms, but it's an integrated set of interventions. So there is a monitoring through citizen science, but it's also how this links to restoration activity, to One Health literacy, to build a blue economy, and to operationalize, I mean, to build this new governance model. And integration is key because there is synergies among these actions. It's not just to clean up from plastic the beach, but is engage population that are there, that becoming aware, etc. So we are doing this, so we hope to be successful in this. And just here, the last slide to show you that this is like a map, an inspiring map of diverse sectors that can be connected to One Health, from food to agriculture, tourism, recycling sectors. And what we can offer as in our institution is to support and facilitate this collaboration, and to see how we can transfer, also replicate this initiative in other places. Or just we invite you also to be part of our network, even as isolated institution, because we can still learn each other. We can offer, share knowledge. Sharing knowledge for us is a key point. And it's not only the academic knowledge, it's the knowledge of the agents, of people, of citizens. So I hope to see you later in the breakout room. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aline. And I know I felt really cruel asking you to only have 8 minutes, because I know when we talk about this in practice, we get so excited talking about all these opportunities. But I'm sure you got this already, but as Aline said, you know, researchers are always keen to work with people outside of research. And, you know, Aline and Marc and Kevin are from BC3 in Bilbao. I'm from the University of Exeter. We've got Mick on the call from the University of Warsaw. So, you know, connect to us all. And if we can help you with any ideas after this, or if you have questions or want to talk about collaborations, then please do reach out. So thanks again, Aline. So now I'm going to introduce you to Mick, who's joining us from the University of Warsaw, as I just said, and he featured on our introductory slide doing the tree pose on the beach, which really makes me smile. And Mick, I enjoy hearing you talk because I feel like you're very good at explaining quite technical research and, you know, the stuff you're working on. So if anyone has any questions whilst he's talking, please save them for the end, or you can pop them in the chat. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Mikołaj Czajkowski. Thanks for introducing me, Kerri. I'm going to talk about a very practical question. Since this is an innovation slam, I'm going to pitch some ideas. But these are ideas that come from our research at BlueAdapt, in particular, the research in economics components. So the very practical question is, when does an idea that you might have become a viable innovation? And my answer is probably boring because it's economics. But in economics, it usually means that it's useful. So it becomes viable when it helps someone make a better decision. So, and then in terms of, with respect to coastal waters, the decision is simple: where to swim, when to swim, or when to avoid swimming, and basically what to trust. So I'm going to focus on the information and whether information is useful or not. And by information, I mean monitoring, warnings, forecasts, and also education, because we've also tested how this changes in time. So here's the logic of in one picture. There are some risks which are often invisible or uncertain. In many cases, you don't get this information about the risks. So without information, if it's not available, you just rely on habit or guesswork, or you just do what you've always been doing. You might be using some simple precaution, but that's about it. And then you end up with some decisions. You take trips, and then there's an outcome. So you might enjoy your trip, but in some cases you might be exposed to pathogens, and in some cases this ends up badly, which is a lost welfare. So an alternative route would be to get this information, and if you have the current signals in terms of warnings or forecasts, then you might have a different decision. And if you make a different decision, like choosing a different beach or a different time, or following some precautions, the outcome could be a bit different in terms of different number of trips, but in the end, a different welfare for you, or for a consumer, for an individual. So the difference between the two offers some value. It's a potential value that could be realized if this information is provided. So my talk generally boils down to how much of value is there to exploit, and then whether innovation can actually exploit that value. And I think that the answer is yes. Let me show you our results and the basis for why I think so. The current system of monitoring and forecasts in Europe is really a patchwork. I have an example from Poland. This is the Gulf of Gdańsk and Vistula Lagoon, basically the area that you can see in the red circle. But it's very different across Europe. And I think the baseline that we can more or less agree on is that 4 out of 10 events are actually people get warning in time, which in some places this is much better, like Denmark, which has I suppose a really nice forecast system. But in other places like Poland, the monitoring is roughly once every 2 weeks. It's usually at the beginning of the season, at the end of the season, and then once a month or something like this. So in other places, this is more or less similar. Of course, it varies a lot, but in many cases, it's just annual classification, and then good luck. You hit it or you won't hit it. So I also have some stats on how many baiting sites were closed in Poland because of the water quality issues. This is just to give you a background of what we studied. So we've designed this survey. It was actually a 3-wave active user panel survey, and then the 4th wave for policy support, which was administered to the general population. And just to give you a glimpse of what we did, in the 1st wave, we've studied users and to establish beach choices baseline, people's travel behavior and preferences. In the 2nd wave, we also included education. So in a split sample treatment, we educated some of respondents about the risks of pathogens, and we did not educate others. We just gave them general information. And again, we elicited their preferences for beach choices and to study how they choose their beaches. Then a year later, we interviewed the same people again. And this time, we wanted to test how much of this education, this information that we gave them, how much of this was retained. And we wanted to see what are their preferences for public policies that could aim at mitigating the risk or adapting to the risk, which is basically warnings and forecasts. And then there was one more wave, which was to the general population, just to compare it with the users. So we measured this value of information based on this design of the study that we had. And we also observe whether education changes what people value and what they actually do, because we've also asked about their beach choices. So here's just a snapshot of the results. How much are we talking about? Well, in terms of the beach choice, we can measure this as the extra distance that people are willing to travel for a beach that has a lifeguard or daily monitoring instead of bi-weekly monitoring, and so on. And you can see that the distance is real. So it's not an actual price you could charge on an app if an innovator developed such an app. But the interpretation is for me at least, is that, yeah, people are already willing to trade information for their own time and money, basically, because if you travel further, it's costly. Then for the public program, the third survey that I mentioned, we measured people's willingness to pay, which is in monetary terms this time, in euro per household per year. It was an incentive-compatible design to find out how much people would be willing to pay for a program that would actually reduce the baseline risk from 20 in 1,000. This is 20 swim days in 1,000, which end up with some adverse health effects, to maybe 4 per 1,000 or 2 per 1,000. And it's about, let's say, 12 euro. But then, in addition, people are also willing to pay for more frequent monitoring. And we've also measured this value, and it was about 6 or 8 euro per household, depending on how frequent this monitoring should be. So this is just an indication that this potential value that I mentioned in the beginning, it's real, and it's money that could be, somehow delivered to people, to consumers, one way or the other, either through private businesses or through governments or through other means possible. So this is just a summary. Before education, people have already made trade-offs for distance, site attributes, and monitoring, which includes safety. After education, so this split sample treatment that some of them got educated about the risks, their values increased, and they increased selectively for attributes which are related to risks. So we found a result there. We found that through information campaigns or some other public policies, you can actually even increase the value that people put on their safety when they go swimming. And then we tested this 1 year later to see whether this effect of educating people, whether it was still there. And it was visible in people's choices of public policies, so in their preferences for public policies, and also in their preferences which were revealed by their beach choices, because we've asked where they went in this last year and compared this with their beach choices a year earlier. So the innovation lesson is, if you solve the risky day decision, maybe there's a profit there. But monitoring is just one part of the puzzle, because you can only monitor water so frequently. So in some cases, the monitoring results are not available on the same day, and you can probably do much better if you do forecasts. There are already some data streams like rainfall, weather forecasts, and so on, wastewater data. And there are some models. We do have some models for some case study areas, like the University of Bangor does in our project, that could be exploited for this. But in most places, they are missing. And so, it could be possible to develop such models. And sell the results maybe one way or the other, because these forecasts could actually be useful and could give the people what they really need, which is the information on time. And when I think about this, I already see a very similar business models with respect to weather apps, because there are tons of weather apps and they use different forecasts, different models. Some of them are paid because they're more precise than others. And so I imagine a similar thing would be possible for forecasting bathing water safety. So this is the innovation space, which at least from our research here appears, well, maybe that's just something exploitable. This niche is real because you already have
1 minute warning.
Thanks. You already have apps that actually try to address this. And Surfers Against Sewage app was mentioned earlier. This is an app that is already available in the UK, and it's being used by thousands of users. As far as I understand, it only gives you the current situation, so you can report that there's a poo somewhere. It doesn't give you forecasts, but still, there's a demand for it, and people use it. So finally, there's the question who should pay for it, and my understanding is it's not necessarily the swimmer. I mean, obviously the users might be willing to pay for such information and such innovation because they can make better choices, especially users who are vulnerable and particularly susceptible to infections because of bathing. But it could also be business who may pay for, trust or getting their customers better advice or safer tourism. Or it could be public agencies, which may pay because better warnings reduce exposure and basically help the public welfare. So this value, I think, it is something that could be exploited, and there's room for innovations in this area. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mick.
Like Balboa, it sounds. Yeah, so just a few slides talking about our collaboration with BlueAdapt and specifically the universities of Exeter and Galway. So just to tell you a little bit about the Safer Season River Service. Oh, all the fonts haven't come through, but anyway, all good. It still looks right. If you could go to the next slide, please, Anne-Marie, that would be great. Yes, so the project involved the Safer Season River Service, which is basically a free, real-time nationwide sort of water quality alert service. It's in an app form and it covers hundreds of locations across the UK, and it's used by over 300,000 people. And the main question really that people who use it want to know is whether it is safe to swim in a given place on any given day. So just to the next slide, please. So as many of us know, and I'm specifically speaking about the UK here, but there is a lot of water quality data, but it's super fragmented. In terms of what we do in the app, we have different data sources pulling information into one app 24/7. 365 days a year. So there's quite a lot going on there. We get that data from water companies. We get it from different regulators, so including the Environment Agency, Natural Resources Wales, SEPA. And then we also pull it from the National Storm Overflow Hub, which is a place where water companies are required to publish some of their CSO data. It's really complex, as many of us already know. Each water company models the data differently. There's no standards for how long an alert stays up for. There's now in the app all the CSO data. So that's a huge number of data points, like 18,000 pulling every 10 minutes. There's also all the pollution risk forecasts from the regulators. So it's highly technical and quite difficult for the public to interpret. And then in a matter of minutes, everything can change because we live in a dynamic world. And 1 minute a beach can be safe to swim at, and then there's an overflow, and the dynamics of whether it's safe might change. So we're using all that real-time information. So next slide, please. Why we work with BlueAdapt. So we know that the SSRS is widely used, but what we didn't know with any rigor anyway was whether it was actually working to help keep people safe and to improve the service that we offer. So we tried to set out to find whether the SSRS changes how people behave around getting in the water and how they respond to whether it's their question of whether it's safe to swim. We also wanted to try and establish if there was any link or find any link between water quality information and health outcomes, and also whether does the way we present information affect how people respond to it. And then in a sort of general sense, how can we make the service that we offer to UK water users more effective? Just to the next slide, please. This might be going into a bit too much detail, and what is really a little bit of a letdown is that I can't go through any of the results right now because it's all in peer review. But what I can tell you is that we had 2 studies. And the first one in summer 2024 was looking at sort of a health and behaviour piece. So we were trying to understand the current user behaviour, the app use and the health outcomes. And we put a survey out to see whether how people use the service and whether it changes their decisions, and then whether they choose to get in the water at that time or whether they choose to make a different decision, go elsewhere or delay whether they get in the water. And then just last autumn, we really looked whether how we design and surface the data in the app changes how people respond to it and whether they act then differently. So I do not have any of those results, and the academics who are working on the projects are fairly sad about that, but we will share that as we go through. The next 2 slides actually go into much more detail, and I'll share these slides so you've got them, but I'm wondering whether not to go through them now, but it's just really explains what we did and why it mattered, because it was the first time that anyone had evidenced whether the SSRS does change what people do. So that was a really key thing, but I'm going to run through this because I know Kerri's going to tell me I've got about 2 minutes left. So if you could go to the next slide and then the one after that. So those results will be published, but as we've gone through, we have had sort of tastes of what the learnings are. And what we have done from a innovation standpoint and in a technology piece is that thanks to the academics that we've worked with, we have overhauled how we analyze what we surface in the app and the metrics surrounding what we do. So that's been an incredibly useful sort of 2.5-year program that's meant that we've got more rigor in what we do. We also know a lot more about who uses the service and what they need and when we're falling short as a direct response to this work with BlueAdapt. And we have already, and the sprint and cycle will be released in the next couple of weeks, ready for the summer holidays. We've redesigned the user journeys in the app to make it clearer and easier for people to find the information that matters to them based on preliminary findings through this work that have yet to be published. And then actually, really interestingly, a piece of work that's in development, technical development at the moment, is that we're developing a personalized alert functionality. So people really can get, I think, a sort of a personalized piece, particularly if they're inland, about what's happening in their local area. And that gives that sense that the app's sort of made for them. I think someone, and we might bring it up in the breakout rooms, but we certainly do just use current real-time data, and part of the next journey of the app, once this sort of summer piece 2026 has finished, is to be bringing in the sort of forecasting piece in terms of trying to predict what may be happening going forward and working with more clever people than us to try and achieve that using a combo of modelling and AI. So we've actually have been scoping out what that could look like over the last 6 months. So just in case we talk about that in one of the breakout rooms a little bit later. And next slide, please.
Last minute.
Yeah, just to say, if this was just a little bit of a sort of overview, I guess, for those who might not know what Surface Against Sewage does. I run the sort of app and all of the pieces I've gone through, but actually the app is a public health tool, but I sit as part of a much wider campaigns and policy team within a campaigning organisation, and we do look at using the sort of SSRS as a sort of tool to report sickness. So people get sick, we want people to send in where they've got sick and where and when, and as much detail as they can. That builds our evidence base. We want them to contact their MPs and sort of take action to let their MPs know what's going on in their local area. And with all of the data that we work with, and as you saw from the previous slides, there's a lot of it, and we investigate the gaps and irregularities in that data, and we call in a nationwide sense, but also to each water company in very regular meetings to call for transparency for the data they give us, because we can see that there's a lot more that we could be getting. And then just to say that all of the data we do adds up to a sort of national picture about what the state of sewage is, and we put pressure on local and national government to make the case to end sewage pollution and make that case for change. So, and the last slide is just to just bring it to a personal note, really, and say thank you, but also to say my daughter is on the top on the right in her little goggles, orange goggles, not putting her head in the water actually at that point, aged 4. And sort of 5 years later, she's now part of the Surf Lifesaving Nippers in Bude, where I live, and is in the water a lot and is her own little active campaigner. So why I do this is because I care very passionately about it all, and so does this little girl who's become a much bigger girl through this, and enjoyed the water. So I want to keep it clean. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam. I actually have a tear coming to my eye because it's so nice to see. And it's nice to hear why we're all passionate about this topic and why it means a lot to us, whatever that reason is. And that's why we're all here doing what we do. So thank you so much for sharing a whistle-stop tour of what Surface Against Sewage is doing. There's a link there to Sam's LinkedIn in the chat. But yeah, if anybody would like to connect further, we can put you in touch with Sam and she can help with that. Does anybody have any questions about Surface Against Sewage, their app, or perhaps the way that research has collaborated with them? Jess.
Hi, Sam. Hiya. I'm wondering if you'd be interested in chatting with us at Bangor, because we've got viral dispersal models and we've got a microbial risk assessment that can predict actual risk and like health outcomes. And we're also working with lots of swimming groups and triathletes, and we're looking how exposure to viruses in waters then translates into like clinical symptoms or illness. And the idea why we're collecting this data, we've got all of our virus surveillance data since 2022, where we've looked at a whole load of viruses in wastewater. Now we're trying to team it up with public health outcomes. And the idea being is that we can use our dispersal models, our microbial risk assessments, and combine them into an AI learning model for exactly the same thing that you want to do, which is to nowcast and forecast health risk events in coastal areas and rivers. And so it might be good to
yes please yes please
you're going to need data to train those models, and I don't see the point in duplicating efforts.
Yes, that would be absolutely brilliant. I was hoping that I was going to pick up with you as soon as I was listening to your presentation. So, yes, please, let's make that.
Then. Yeah, all right.
How exciting. There we go. There's some innovation that's just going to roll off the screen. So brilliant. That makes it all worthwhile. I just wondered as well. So Ari, I hope you don't mind me putting you on the spot here. Ari is from our rainwater. Maybe you could tell us quickly about that. But I just wondered, have you connected at all with Surface Against Sewage? Just with the link of rainwater causing runoff and then water pollution alerts?
That's a really good question. So our rainwater basically looks at community level interventions for surface water management. So we're trying to manage rainwater where it lands, prioritizing reuse, but eventually disconnecting from combined sewers or attenuating if that's the only option, with the sort of end result of mitigating or reducing the likelihood of sewer overflows, surface water flooding, and the pathogenic pollution impacts that they have. I think our founder Sarah might have had a conversation with Surface Against Sewage at some point quite early on. I think because it was quite early on, I don't know where that went, but we are looking, I think we're just finishing a contract now with Southwest Water for a project in St Agnes, looking at surface water management at community level. And we would absolutely love to work with Surface Against Sewage in that. There's definitely, I think previously there's been some tension between looking at the community level and looking at the water company level, because water companies ultimately have the responsibility for managing their infrastructure and preventing sewer overflow. And I don't want to conflate us working at the community level with blaming individuals, or sort of passing the buck from water companies. And it's really important we don't do that. So I don't want Surface Against Sewage to feel that we're using them to greenwash this, because I don't want to be putting this onto householders. The responsibility lies with the water companies. But I think there's a lot we can be doing in our houses to reduce surface water runoff into the combined sewer network, just because it's above ground. So the infrastructure is so much easier to intervene with. If you're looking at sewer separation, or if you're looking at sort of upscaling of capacity in combined sewer networks, the logistics of that are so much harder than when you've got water in a downpipe on your house. So that's and the sort of resilience element of it being spread out and distributed around a catchment is very beneficial. So yes, we'd love to please work with Surface Against Sewage, but we'll probably reach out for that when we have the final details from Southwest Water about that. Because it would be fantastic to work together on something that our vision is completely aligned. It'd be so good to get that collaboration.
I might nudge you both to just, when you go into the meeting rooms, make sure you cross over so that you can just have a quick chat. That would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Ari.
I'll add you on LinkedIn, Sam. Send you a message.
So now I'd love to invite you.
Well, you've gone,
Kerri.
I can't hear you.
We don't listen to you.
Hello. Sorry, Jokin. I was just introducing you. Jokin is joining us from Bilbao. We're so grateful that you're joining us, because we know you've got a busy day, and that this is also important to you. So if I just hand over to you, please. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Kerri, and thank you for the invitation. I'm going to share my screen, first of all. Let me check. Can you see it, or it's just...
Yes, we can see it. It's not in full bloom mode, but we can see it.
Yeah, I'm sorry with that, but since I'm having some problems with the Adobe, and I'm not able to open the Adobe as the presentation, so I'm doing it in the Chrome screen. But any
great.
doubt, you can stop me and ask me anything. So that's okay. Well, first of all, good morning, and my name is Jokin Etxebarria. I'm from Naider, a Basque company that we work mostly on economic transformation and ecological transition processes with territories. And for this invitation, or for this presentation, we are planning to show you a little bit about us, about how we work when we are trying to work with coastal territories, or with coastal innovative territories that are planning to start this journey. Many of the things we have been mentioning or debating during this session require a territorial perspective, or at least a more holistic perspective, and that's where we many times work or interact. First of all, we usually get involved through the whole life cycle of the public policy, from the planning through the implementation, and afterwards through the evaluation. Something that is a bit particular for companies, that we combine many different disciplines. We work together: architects, environmental scientists, economists, sociologists, and many times when we do not have like a specific knowledge domain, we also collaborate with other researchers, companies, to try to bring that systemic view to our work that is very related with lots of the topics we have been working on or through this workshop. A bit of our company, we have been working since 2004, and as I said, we try to add value through the whole life cycle of the public policy. When it comes to the different phases, we usually and when it comes to coastal territories, we usually divide it into three main phases. Like the first one will be the planning, the second one the implementation, and then the evaluation. So through my presentation, I will try to stick to this structure and show you some examples that we have been working on relating coastal territories and innovation policies. The first one will be the planning, which is maybe one of the phases that we spend most of our time, because when a territory wants to start a process of innovation related with the coast, let's say related with climate change adaptation, could be One Health approach, could be other kind of processes. Many of the things we do are related to designing or helping to design or coordinate the knowledge, science, and technology policies. Help as well in the technology transfer part. So not only from what it should be done and in terms of the content of the transfer or the projects that will be in place, but also with the spaces, with planning how to do it locally, all that process of designing the technology transfer processes. We also help there. We help companies in the innovative process, and that brings us that many times we are in the middle, or we try to work between academia, public institutions, businesses, and also citizens or local associations that many times require lots of coordination or trying to give or coordinate different perspectives. And one example of this, and which is very related with the One Health perspective, is a project we were working on Uribe Costa County, which is a coastal county here in Vizcaya, which is composed by different municipalities. And what we did here is, apart from helping the territory construct the specialization strategy around the blue economy or around the coast, we also helped to build the innovation ecosystem built around PIE, or Plencha Marine Station, which is very focused on the research or on generating scientific knowledge related with the interaction between health, the sea, the human. So that's where we help the territory to let's say find an space, design that space, talk with local authorities, talk with other authorities or government authorities that are in charge of other kind of policies that also affect the territory, and together with the peer, try to build that innovative ecosystem, and that's what we are actually also working on. We follow that similar approach in Oarsoaldea regarding which is another county in Gipuzkoa, regarding these processes and building innovation territories. In Oarsoaldea was more focused on the climate adaptation, so not that much on the One Health approach, but more or less the logic that usually follows these processes is very similar in the territories. What changes many times is the scope of the knowledge, but the process is quite similar.
1 minute.
Okay. When we try to put it in motion, it's mostly about trying to align priorities, make people understand. So many times when we talk theoretically or from a more generic perspective, everyone is aligned. But then when we try to put it in the territory and start working on it, is where it starts. One example could be a living lab, but we work in many other projects related with coastal innovation that don't have the official name of living labs, but are something similar, and is many times about getting different actors aligned, the universities, the technological centers, the local authorities, the government authorities, the citizens, and get everyone involved in the elaboration process. In Oarsoaldea, we did a similar process, but regarding the climate change adaptation. So it was the whole process, since designing the flood risk models, designing how the data monitoring will be designed, the sensors, talking with the citizens, how we implemented it. We also built a digital twin that was created for local authorities to use in the future. So we helped on the coordination and building the pilot operational plans of all these dimensions to work and to be useful for the society and for the people, for the local people at the end, right?
We need to wrap up in a second, please.
Yes, these ones are faster. We also help in the process of making it investable or giving it an economic dimension. Also, both from the macroeconomic point of view, the cost of inaction or the impacts, but also in a more specific point of view, but cost benefit analysis, cost effectiveness, and so on. We also help in the monitoring, so with observatories, digital twins, flood risk models, these kind of tools that help evaluate and monitor the projects in the future. And just 3 ideas if you want to collaborate in the future. We usually think about co-designing from day one, because these innovation processes usually require the acceptance of the local community, and we find it useful to co-design from day one, build the economic case. This is a bit controversial sometimes, depending on the matter, but it's not about just giving a market value or whatever, but more about knowing the limitations, the economic limitations, and what the implications would be in the future towards putting them in work, right? And finally, think One Health, we call it here, but mostly it's about thinking systemically. That's how we think. That's how we work and approach this kind of territorial innovation process. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It sounds so interesting. And although I know you're over in Bilbao, I'm sure, you know, no matter kind of where people are in Europe, if they wanted to connect with you and, you know, share from your experience, that kind of thing, then that would be beneficial. So thank you so much for your time today. We haven't quite got time for questions there, but if you have got a question for Jokin, please put it into the chat for me and I will email him directly and copy you in so that you can connect. Thank you very much. So if you could now stop sharing, and then we are going to go over to Francisco. So Francisco joins us from Bilbao also, and I know it's really, really hot for you guys, so thank you. And it's getting towards the middle of your day, so thank you so much for being online with us. I will leave you to introduce yourself. So over to you.
So it's going to be me presenting today. So we are Toni and Fran. We are in different settings today, but yeah, we are the founders, the ideators of EO for Good. EO for Good. Let's see if I can pass. Yeah, it's a call for humanity to work for the common good. It's a think tank, but also and a strategic, very specialized consultancy on generating process of change in a co-creation and collaborative manner. And we are very touching the translation modes between different type of actors, different type of knowledges of interdisciplinary approaches. So it's very much linked with what Jokin was saying, with Aline was saying. So we are all in the constellation of Helios Living Lab, and also in other initiatives that we are working together in our contest. So, and we are going to do a very practical thing. I was putting in the chat to get a pen and a pencil with you. Do you have all one pen and pencil so that we bring the analogic approach to the co-creation and participation together? When you are ready with the pen and the pencil, just let me know. All of you.
I'm ready.
This is our methodology to keep everybody in the same boat, working together.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Toni. And yeah, let's fire away. Let's go.
Yeah, you ready all? You note or you give a thumb up? Marc, Jessica, Alba, Aline, everybody with a pen and a pencil? Okay, so we are going to send you a challenge. You'll have only 20 seconds to, everybody ready? Draw a flower. 20 seconds. Time starts now. Flower. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 2, 3, 1, 0. Time over. So can you show us the flowers? Let's see. We cannot see them very well because it's blurred. So we have a daisy. Let us check. What is yours, Caroline? We cannot hear. And just open your mic.
It's a flower.
It's a flower. What type
flower.
of flower? What type of flower?
I mean, I'm not a big draw. I've been drawing flowers like this since I was 5. So
okay.
I'm not very skillful. Kerri's is much nicer.
Okay, so we can almost guess that all the flowers in the room, or most of them, are daisies. Most of them. If you saw them, and this is something we have proved in many workshops, and it's a way for us to say that if we look in internet, we have more than 200,000, 270,000, whatever number of flowers. But for our brains, we are trained in a manner that change and innovation is very difficult. So we are stuck to our patrons. So it's very difficult. And to realize this is a simple example of the many we use, is a way for us to raise awareness on how we are stuck in our everyday patterns. So this is something we do. We train on the process of change with this systemic vision towards a triple transition. And this is because when we realize by talking with the European Commission, we are 25 years of experience working with environmental issues, but also with digital transitions, that the social approach to innovation was missing. And we came with this idea of the triple transition, the all for one for all triple transition, social, green, and digital, where we put the societal impact approach in the center of everything we do. And we call it the most few tiers, the just triple transition. You have the chapter of the book that it is there. Wait a second. I have an echo here. Okay. And so this is something we do. And then we are working with this multi-actor, multi-eye. So we have different elements, at least 20, that start with an eye. Interpersonal relations, intercultural, intersectional, intergenerational. So when you put all these collaborations, elements together, dimensions, then you can really bring people to think differently, to bring new ideas together, so that we can really make a change and be aware that there is not only one type of flower, there are many types of flowers that we can really make alive.
Oh, I think we've lost your mic for a moment. Or is it just me? No, we've lost your.
No, we did. We haven't. Yeah, she's.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now, yes.
Okay. So I can rewind a little bit and see if I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So this is our model that is not a theoretical one. We are applying it in different settings with the combination of all these elements that start with an eye, from interpersonal relations, when we build trust among ourselves, when we build the intercultural relations, the intersectional, the intergenerational, people from different ages, people from different disciplines, from different institutions, then we are able to really build ecosystems that think in a systemic manner with the interaction of many different dimensions and people. And wait a second, I'm going to pass. We are trying this in Helios. Yeah, I'm finishing in a minute. Which is a user-led action. And we have seen Aline talking about that, also Jokin. So we are a group of actors working together there and thinking on the real problems and bringing all the different knowledges from not only academia, from lay people, from users, etc. But we are working with people in Japan. So we have this Tokoro Lab that is bringing universities and companies together. And we have also a sample, for example, from Hamburg Ministry of Health and Innovation. We have a list of podcasts where we bring all these examples of living labs or co-creation quadruple helix. And the thing that we are really, that is driving us, is this call to action to train the next agents of change, to let us think in a way that innovation for impact, for the common good, is the driver of everything we do. So I think this is the last, to say thank you for listening, and to share also this book that is open access, where we explain how we understand this transformative governance for the future, that we need to bring everybody together to really work for the change. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, thank you. And I love how you brought us all back into ourselves, but also connected us there. And a lot of what we've been talking about is very, out there in the world, but you just managed to bring us back down and ground us. And I wish I'd done something like that at the beginning of this. So thank you for that really important reminder. And again, what you were talking about, again, you're like really thinking about the people, aren't you? The people that you need in the room to make these things happen and share expertise. So yeah, amazing. Has anyone got a quick question that they'd like to ask on that topic? Or it doesn't have to be quick. We've got a few more minutes. I would like to ask you a question. Do you have any recommendations for, obviously, different countries are different, but if somebody did have an idea to come up with a tool or a solution, what is the best way to actually start? I guess a lot of people probably get stuck with making that first move. And with the work that you guys do, have you found, is there a helpful path?
Well, it is not a formula that one formula that fits all. So what we do is we listen carefully what is the request coming, and it depends if it's coming from academia. Then we need to see what the maturity level of the idea is and how connected it is with the ecosystem. And from there, we accompany the process to really make things happen in a manner that works. And we move from there. Therefore, this is if it comes from academia. If it comes from a company, then we have to go in a different rhythm, and we have to listen to them, because they might need development from technology or from academia, but the rhythms in these two worlds are completely different. So we really need to understand what is the needs, and then to see how we connect. And this is our formula, bringing the different actors coming together.
Great, thank you. And I was wondering, have EOH for Good and Naider, Jokin, have you guys connected at all on any projects?
We are working in Helios, so it was Olga Lu, that is not with us today, and Aline boosting this at the beginning, and we are now a constellation of actors. Aline was talking about the group of women that are swimming in the river, in the estuary, in the bay, and they are bringing the knowledge of what is needed from their point of view as lay people only swimming in the river, and is posing questions for the academia, but also for the companies as Naider, or for us as the orchestrators of the ecosystem. And then we have to be thinking together how we bring all these knowledges and the needs. And one thing that we are doing, which is very interesting, is to think in an impact-driven approach, which is another element of these dimensions that they start with an I, that if you bring impact from the beginning with the different stakeholders, you are able to buy in the solutions because it's built up with the knowledge of every actor. So and that's amazing to experience. But maybe Aline or Jokin want to say something else because we are in the process of building every time.
Yeah, thank you, Toni. Yes, I can add that we have been doing a huge effort in the last month to be together in a proposal that we submitted, and in a new one we just started also with the Naider. And it's quite tricky because we need actually to see how we integrate, but also how everybody's leading maybe an intervention, a task, but we need also to connect each other and to see how all these basically function as synergies and produce synergy. So I think to me, we just started, but it is so exciting as well. And we learn also because we share also what we know. It's not that everybody has to know everything. That's the other interesting thing, that together we can build more than what each one on its own. So this is my insight on that.